Hey there, it's me, it's Warren. Welcome back to the channel for this new thing that I'm trying out here. We're going to call this the review grab bag, where I am going to, just randomly review wrestling matches that I've watched and I haven't covered or reviewed in the course of another like big show review or whatnot. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a while. I've talked about it quite a bit on stream, especially recently, where, I just wanted to have an opportunity to jump in to watch a match in a promotion that I don't necessarily cover or that I don't necessarily review entire shows, and just jump in, watch a match that's getting some buzz or that has something significant attached to it, and then just like come back with a few thoughts, with a few pithy thoughts. So we're not reviewing shows, we're reviewing matches. I think there's something to be said there. I think that could be very, very interesting, and we've got an interesting lineup of matches to kick things off here as I pull out my little notebook here. So for this first edition, I've got 4 or 5 matches to just talk about. And look, we'll see where this takes us. We'll see how far it goes, because again, this is like a prototype. It's the pilot episode. So we're going to see how this turns out. I'd be very interested to hear all your feedback, by the way. That will be very exciting. And why not leave a like on this video if you do enjoy what's going on, and subscribe, to the channel, because that's also really cool and does help everything grow as well. So we're going to go back a couple of weeks here to start with. We're going to head back to the CMLL Friday night show from October 17, 2025, of course. We're going to talk about Mercedes Mone, who successfully retained the CMLL Women's World title as she defended it in Arena Mexico, of course, against Persephone. It is a match that straight out the gate, look, I'll let you know, I thought that they had a great match. I thought both of them really worked well together. Persephone has really been upping her game quite a bit over the past year. She's clearly been earmarked for big things, at least in regards to the women's division, since Vaquer left, Tessa Blanchard left. You kind of felt like there was a bit of a void that needed to be filled. I've had a couple of theories thrown around that maybe they were going to focus more on Catalina. I even saw openings for Kira, despite the fact that Kira is still a little, well, she's greener than Persephone, let's put it that way. So maybe it'd just be too soon to pull the trigger on someone like Kira, who nonetheless has a fantastic future, but very apparently, it seems very clear to me anyway that CMLL does have a lot of hope and promise in Persephone, and there's people in North America who are paying attention. Of course, on top of that, I believe she's well liked among AEW officials. So there was really no surprise that she got the defense here in a match that at first started off a little sloppy. I thought that I was kind of gritting my teeth and going, oh my goodness, this one's going to be rough, isn't it? Persephone not necessarily used to being in these top spots, like they were main eventing a Friday night Arena Mexico show, which is a big deal. So maybe she had a little bit case of the jitters or whatnot. And look, I've said multiple times in regards to Mercedes Mone, whose work I really, really like. Mercedes has a delightful sloppiness to what she does. Like she will never be known for being a precise, high level of exactitude when executing her moves. That's never what she'll be known for. But she works that into her style. I mean, that's how she's able to subsist. That's how she's able to survive in this pro wrestling world. That's how she's been able to maintain herself. She incorporates that level of sloppiness to her work, and it makes everything feel a little more risky. It makes everything feel a little more dangerous when she's throwing stuff. She's very good. Because Whenever I say that, sometimes people will be like, well, what do you mean she's sloppy? You mean she botches? And it's like, no, that's not what I mean. It's just like there's her style is not about precision. It's about getting things done. And I feel like that's something that you don't see much these days, where wrestling moves have to be so precise and overly timed. Everything has to be land perfectly in sequence. Someone who's a little more rough around the edges but can still deliver great matches, I think that adds a little bit, that adds some authenticity. It gives the impression, much more the impression, that you're watching a fight than than people hitting a sequence of very spectacular moves, but you can clearly see that they're moving from move to move to move. And that's one of Mercedes' strengths. And I mean, that's been her case for a long time. And I feel she's only picked up her game in the past year or so. Basically, I thought the opening few moments were a little rough. I thought that Mercedes, but quickly they were able to start stringing some things together and tell a pretty good story, where Persephone was all about all about power, and Mercedes about the quickness, about her high flying moves, just being sneaky as much as possible, like that. You could see then that they started working off those two aspects and really building to a really good match. Now, the one thing that I would like Persephone to try and improve is her striking, especially if the power game is going to be part of her arsenal. Not that she can do flips. She does flips just as well as anyone else. That's fine. But she does incorporate much more of a power game into it. And I really don't like her strikes. Her strikes are really, really soft. And it doesn't work for the type of wrestler she wants to be. Like, I'm not saying she's going to be, a Steve Austin type brawler. That's not it. But she does need to work on her strikes. I think it's really a weak part of her game. But nonetheless, throughout it all, she did excellently in this match. She wrestled. This is one of my favorite Persephone matches. I think she's, if not my favorite Persephone match that I've seen her had. I'm trying to think of some in the past as far as a singles match goes. I think this might be her best performance to date. None surprising, she's hanging out with, arguably one of the greatest women's wrestlers of all time, inarguably the greatest North American women's wrestler of all time. So she had her back on that level. It all really coalesced. I thought Mercedes did an excellent job playing the heel to the crowd, and without falling into the usual tropes, the tropes that maybe usually MJF will use when he's in Arena Mexico. She didn't fall back on those, but she did go after Persephone's family. Even spilled some water on, was it her grandmother? Was it her mother? I wasn't quite sure. I was listening to Spanish commentary. No disrespect to the English language team. I am so used to watching CMLL with the Spanish commentators. It really does feel weird. It just feels weird if I'm watching an Arena Mexico show and it's CMLL and there's English commentary. Look, when AEW earlier this year did the Grand Slam Mexico show, despite the fact that I knew it was an AEW show, just hearing Excalibur and Taz and was it Tony or Ian? I don't remember, but just hearing the English table, but seeing Arena Mexico, it just completely threw me. It just completely threw me off. So again, no disrespect. This was probably clarified by someone somewhere. I don't know. It doesn't matter. In regards to who she poured water on, it doesn't matter who exactly she poured the water on. Nonetheless, because she did, and it got some good heat, and Persephone played off that wonderfully. She gets Mercedes into a submission, and Mercedes is struggling out of it. But then Mercedes shortly thereafter, they do that. They trade submissions, right? to try and get out of each other's finisher, and it's a struggle to get out, which is interesting because usually submissions in lucha libre, they're like instantaneous tap outs, right? It's like, oh, like you're in severe danger. So the fact that they're struggling out means like you're in a main event spot, like this is a big match and people are giving it their all to try and succeed. But the second time that Mercedes locks in the bank statement, the bank account, what does she call it? The statement maker. The second time she did that, Persephone had nowhere to go. All she could do was just tap, and that was that. And Mercedes won. I think there was a lot of people who were expecting Persephone to win the title on that night. And these were probably all people who don't necessarily partake in the weekly CMLL shows. Persephone was not the person to do it. She just was not. And we're going to stretch this out a little more. It's not going to be Olympia. It's going to be someone, but they're going to stretch this out. Clearly, they being CMLL enjoy the idea of Mercedes Mone coming to perform there. You know, they did not pack a house as it is mostly the case with the all women's shows that they put on in Arena Mexico. That's just how it goes. I think the last time I checked, it was like they were talking about maybe 10,000 people in the arena, where it's usually on Friday nights it's packed. So, you know, like there's that idea. There's always this idea that the women don't do good business in CMLL, but the fact that Mercedes was there probably did add a few more butts in the seats, but it's hard to say. If she had gotten maybe up to 12, 13, 14,000, or even better, 16,000, you could absolutely put that all on Mercedes. But I do believe that she did have something to do with the amount of people that came to see the show, because it turns out that October 17 Arena Mexico show was the largest attendance recorded for an all-women's show since 2017 in all of North America. And yes, that includes the AEW, the WWE Evolution show from earlier this summer. So yeah, that's a notable factoid to add to this evening, and to a match that I really liked. Like, if you want me to drop a dopey star rating on it, I'd give it 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was an excellent match. I thought it was really, really good, exciting, good stuff. I've got a lot of women's matches on my on this first edition of the Grab Bag here. We're gonna head to Super Battle, which was Deadlock Pro's big show on October 19, just a couple of days after Mercedes and Persephone, where we saw Queen Aminata defeat Nicole Matthews to become the Deadlock Pro Women's Champion. So I went into this match knowing what the result was. I'm a big DPW Queen Aminata fan. I've said this multiple times, but I'm going to say it here as well. There is a tremendous discrepancy. There is a notable discrepancy in the work that Queen Aminata does in DPW as opposed to in AEW. Where in AEW, she's good, she's fine, she does her thing, and she's riding the babyface train and whatnot, and she's affable. We like Queen Aminata, right? But in DPW, she's aggressive, she's stubborn, she's got a mean streak about her, and it permeates so much what she does in the ring that it's the best form of Queen Aminata that exists out there. The one that we see in the Carolinas whenever DPW puts on a show. Like, we did see a little bit of that early when Tekla joined AEW, remember? And there was that weird event where Aminata basically no-sold the finish, and people thought that they were feuding, and I did, and I still kind of think there's some heat there. Like, there was no heat, okay? And the point, regardless, is that Aminata was showing some of that extra little oomph of aggression that she's got in her, and that she's able to channel more in DPW, probably because, AEW wants to produce her a certain way right now. And DPW, well, you have a little more liberty, you have a little more freedom. It's the indies, it's whatever. So when I heard that she won their women's championship, I was like, hot dog. I want to check that match out. And what I saw was a perfectly good little match that was marred by the fact that Nicole Matthews is just like a step behind her contemporaries at this point. Nicole has been doing this for a while. I don't think she's ever been the greatest professional wrestler on earth. There's a lot of people who wonder why she was never signed. Well, I kind of figured, well, what does she really bring to the table? And it's not necessarily because she's terrible. It's just like, well, where does she fit in a major league environment? I've always thought that her work was so-so. And now that she's a little older, and, you kind of figure, well, maybe you can see it in her work. She's not as crisp or as snappy as someone like Aminata is, who's someone who is visibly hungry and just wants to get in the ring and do shit and learn stuff and then put it all out on display. Like she's building herself, while Nicole Matthews, this is kind of, this is a late stage career for her. And I think her own limitations at this point ended up hurting the match more than anything else. I did like the story here that they were telling. It was that Aminata is so damn tall that certain moves that Matthews wanted to lock into her, she couldn't, because Aminata's legs, for instance, they're so long. She tries to grapevine the legs at some point, I think, or like she was trying to do a type of Indian deathlock move, and then was reaching over to sort of like clutch the neck or whatever, and she couldn't reach. And later on in the match, she does like an STF and walks into the same issue. I was like, this is interesting. Like, this is a nice little quirk to show that Matthews hadn't prepared for Aminata right up until that point, but Aminata was ready for it, and she's throwing strikes, she's throwing her headbutts, and the finish comes when Matthews goes to get a swig of wine. Like, she has wine, because that's her thing. She's fine wine, Nicole Matthews, right? Because you get better with age, you see? That I'm not that far off in my analysis, I'll tell you what. So what she does is that she takes a sip of the wine and then she spits it in the face of her opponents, and acting as missed, but Aminata sees it coming and she headbutts Matthews before she can unleash the mist, the wine mist, and then Aminata finishes her off, I should say, with the off with her head running knee strike leg thing that she does. I give it an even 3 stars. A good little match that had all the effort you could get out of Nicole Matthews, but I'm very excited at the prospect of Queen Aminata really sinking her teeth into this division in Deadlock, which includes people like Hyan, which includes people like Dani Luna. Like there's just enough good things in this division, enough good wrestlers to be like, you know what? I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to her first defense. Like the whole women's locker room emptied out to come and be like first to challenge and whatnot. And I'm excited for that. And I think it's a good portent of the future, even though maybe this match wasn't exactly, it wasn't the spectacular crowning achievement for Queen Aminata, a wrestler that I really like on top of that. So, but yeah, if you want to check it out, go right ahead. But, I would easily say, don't waste your time with it. It's a skip. 3 stars. It's fine. It wasn't anything disastrous, but you don't have to go out and watch it either. But from the same show, if you want to talk about something special from DPW Super Battle on October 19, in case you've already forgotten what we're talking about, If you have, like, hopefully your attention span is a little better than that. I hope I'm just talking to a fringe case here, and not all of you right now. Jake Something defeated Adam Priest in a cage match to become the new DPW champion. And this was great. It was awesome. It was exactly what I hoped it'd be. And it delivered. What you had in this situation was two guys who are very much like, embodiments of just like pure kick-ass pro wrestling, and in their own special ways, right? You'll have a guy like Jake Something, who's going to be like this huge, big bruiser type brawler, and then you'll have Adam Priest, who will, he'll remind you somewhat of a Chris Benoit. He'll remind you a bit of a Dean Malenko. This combination of just aggression, more like aggression. This combination of aggression and just like technical know-how. I probably would have like poo-pooed this and be like, oh, why? This is just, we're trying to do something very, very like down home, something very, very unique here. Why are we adding the escape the cage thing? But the cool thing is, in this circumstance, I really like the escape the cage idea because they attributed it to Adam Priest, who's a shit heel champion. He was the guy who requested the escape the cage rules to win a match. You could still pin or submit your guy in the ring, but you could also escape, because the psychology being that he knows deep inside he can't beat Jake Something one-on-one, so he's got to find another way to ensure a path to victory for himself that doesn't involve beating Jake Something, because he knows Jake Something is a big, hulking, brawling brute that will be, that is a mountain to overcome. So I really like that little addition there. And commentary was putting that over too. They're going, this fucking guy kind of thing. Of course, he wants to take an easy way out. So everyone's like, yeah, this should have just been a straight up cage match if it hadn't been for Adam Priest being such a pussy, essentially. It goes exactly how Adam Priest thought it would be. He gets the piss beat out of him by Jake Something. He's beating him up. He's brutalizing him. He's bleeding. He's bleeding early on in the match too. And it's tremendous. It's tremendous. I like Jake Something, and I've always had a soft spot for Jake Something, because he's a type of wrestler you just really don't see all that much. You don't see big hulking guys like him, just, hairy and wild, and they're just in there to beat dudes up. There's no finesse. He's not trying to do like these spectacular moves. He's just there to throw guys around. That's what I always liked about Jake Something. I feel like he's very special in wrestling in 2025, and they used him perfectly in this match. Now, eventually, Adam Priest does get some comeback spots, but now eventually Trevor Lee, who has an alliance with Adam Priest, comes to the ring. He's got a chair in his hand. And he's trying to climb the ring to come and help climb the cage to help Adam Priest, because he goes for the door. The door's padlocked with a chain. So, it's like no one's getting in or out of this. There's no fucking around with keys and whatnot. And you might be like, so they're doing all the usual tropes with people who are just going to get into the cage. And I as well was expecting that. But no, instead, the entire locker room empties out, and they grab, I say the entire, lots of the locker room, the babyface locker room at the very least, empties out to carry Trevor Lee back to the locker room, so that he can, keep his nose out of that business. So he didn't even get into the ring, but he did throw the chair into the ring, and that was important for the rest of the match. And this is why it worked so well. The chair had to get into the cage so that Adam Priest could have the advantage over Jake Something, and he really used this as an advantage to try and get the best out of Jake Something. And this, in the psychology of the match, this works perfectly. Like we said, Adam Priest was supposed to was supposed to, establish this stipulation, right? To be able to climb out of the cage to win. So he needs every device possible on his end to try and beat Jake something. And this is how you're creating the drama. This is why it's, in this circumstance, I find it's really well done instead of just like interference and, a revolving door of dudes and, tearing the cage down, tearing through the meshing and all that. That's all fucking nonsense usually. But in this case, just the simple addition of the chair in all the story that they were telling here, it made perfect sense and it got you on the edge of your seat. Because now you're like, oh, this motherfucker Adam Priest now, he's got everything on his side to be able to beat Jake something, because he will not be able to beat him clean. Because even earlier in the match, he was trying to escape the cage, but Jake something was like back up on his feet and taking him down. It's like, brother, this is not going to work. So finally you're like, oh, now we got a reason to be worried. Now there's, it's not a shoe-in for Jake something type of thing. But it turns out that it played against Adam Priest, where Jake something lands an avalanche Liger bomb. And it is a fantastic finish. And he lands it. Adam Priest is not getting up from that. New champion. Great match. 4 stars is what I'd give it. And definitely worth a watch. It was a tremendous match. That was absolutely phenomenal. I got around to watching Io Shirai defeat, Io Sky. Look, let's just get this out of the way. I'm going to call her Io Shirai probably for the majority of this review. I don't watch WWE anymore. The Io Sky stuff never imprinted on me. I've been watching Io Shirai wrestle for years before this. I'm sorry to say, I will probably be calling her Io Shirai for the majority of this review, and write a letter to the editor if you're not happy. Io Shirai defeated Mayu Iwatani at the Marigold Dream Destiny show. On October 26th. This was the big guest appearance of 2 of the original Stardom 3. And it starts off with some aggressive but friendly, competition, some back and forth. You can tell both women are enjoying being in the ring with each other. They're just having a good time. Some incredible drop kicks from both wrestlers here. But then at some point, they start diving. They start doing dives on each other, and that makes things a little less playful. Now we're a little pissed. Now we're a little mad. Now things are starting to heat up. And I really liked how this progressed. And it progressed really well throughout the entire match. And, we're seeing Io Shirai wrestle like Io Shirai is expected to. You know what I mean? Like we're seeing her do great things. Doing Orihara moonsaults and some great Northern Light suplexes and power bombing Mayu on the apron and stuff like that. And you're like this feels like an Io Shirai match. She feels unfettered from her usual overproduced stuff that she does in WWE. Granted, I don't watch WWE as much. The last match that I saw of her was that excellent match she had with Rhea Ripley at the Evolution show. That would have been a match of the year if it weren't for the fucking stupid cash-in at the end. That completely ruined everything. But she's really going hard into it, and she is pummeling Mayu. Like, Mayu is eating so much offense, and she's eating buzzsaw kicks and whatnot. But she fights back, starts playing the hits, does her tombstone pile driver, the crucifix driver, dragon suplex. She's, like I said, she starts playing the hits, but eventually Shirai lands the moonsault for the win. Also, before we got to that point, there was an incredible poison rana by Mayu that was just absolutely fantastic. I know, and myself right here, I'm standing here talking to you about this and talking about how great Io Shirai was and whatnot, and that's typically what you're hearing from the people who are jumping into this match and saying Io did so well, But we really, really do have to give some massive props, massive salutations to Mayu Iwatani, who I think was able to dig deep and get the Io Shirai out of the Io Sky for this match. Look, I don't know how involved WWE was in producing this match and sending notes, or I don't know how it works on that level because they never work with anyone, kind of thing. So I couldn't tell you. But I'm not saying that they went rogue and started doing some stuff that wasn't planned. What I'm saying is that Mayu's performance here was extraordinary, and I think she got Io Shirai to dig deep and go mess around in spots that she doesn't usually have the opportunity to mess around in with the overly produced WWE environment and everything that entails. It was an extremely good match that I highly recommend you go and watch. And I've even been told that this was the best Marigold show overall, probably in the history of the company. So I'm probably going to go back and watch the whole thing. And I don't know if I'll review it by the time I get around to watching it and reviewing it. It's really going to be old news. But I heard there were a couple of really, really good matches on the show as well. But as for this one, 4.25 star match for me, I thought it was fantastic. Io Sky and Mayu Iwatani put on a hell of a show. It was tremendous. And finally, to wrap this one up, he says with a grin on his face, we're going to head on over to MLW. That's right, Major League Wrestling, a promotion I legitimately never watch. They had their Symphony of Horrors Halloween show on October 25th. And on that show was a match that really got a lot of my circles buzzing. That I heard a lot of talk about one particular match on this card. I'm talking about Mistico versus Austin Aries in the semifinals of the Opera Cup. So yeah, that's right, Austin Aries. I'm here and I'm going to talk about a match with Austin Aries that a lot of people were really into and has been lauded as an incredible performance on his part. One that makes you wonder if he's not just on the cusp of a career resurgence, which could be, quite frankly. But I wanted to see this for myself because it's Austin Aries. It's Austin Aries. You want to talk about a guy who has a history? Austin Aries is Austin Aries. But here's the thing. I'm convinced that there are a lot of people out there who hate Austin Aries. Don't get them confused. Please don't get them confused. There's a lot of people who don't like Austin Aries who probably don't even remember why they don't like Austin Aries or why he's disliked. I saw one conversation saying, wasn't he called out in Me Too? No, he wasn't. He wasn't. That's not the issue with him. It was nothing ever that serious, as serious as that. He's just a douchebag who is a very vocal douchebag and shares his opinions online like only a douchebag can do. So that's why he's acquired a lot of the ire that he's received. That and, having anti-vax stance in the midst of the pandemic. Yeah, that'll also turn people off. And maybe other people say, yeah, you know what? I don't necessarily want you around on my wrestling show if you're running the risk of contaminating other people around you, you selfish prick. So between the anti-vax stuff, being one of these very vocal vegans, right? Because and look, I want to say something very, very clear. I have friends who are vegans. I'm not a vegan myself. Okay, I couldn't do it. I like the taste of meat too much. I just couldn't pull it off. But I have friends who are vegans, and none of them are assholes. Vegans get a really bad reputation because of their representation that they have online. Because I find like most vegans who promote themselves online do it in very, very obnoxious ways. Very self-important, very smug, I'm better than you type of attitude. My vegan friends aren't like that. And I like vegan food. I like eating vegan. I like it when a real deal vegan cooks me some vegan food because it's fucking delicious. And I could never make that because I don't have the type of brain for that, because my caveman brain would be like, where's the meat? So I don't have the brain to do it. But when I sit down and someone prepares an incredible meal, just like completely out of vegan ingredients, vegan approved ingredients, 95% of the time, I'm like, this shit is fucking delicious. So it's not even the fact that he's a vegan, it's the fact that he's an obnoxious vegan. I don't care if he's vegan, and no one really does, except him, of course. So as I was saying, between the veganism, the anti-vax stuff, and the promise ring, there's a lot of stuff that ended up having Austin Aries turn into somewhat of a joke, a pariah to a degree. He's kind of like this generation's low key to a degree. And you can dislike him for his value set. I have no issues with that. I have no problems with it. Like he's not a wrestler I seek out personally either. He gets on my nerves. But at some point, I want to see his art. I want to be able to continue to have an opinion, an informed opinion about the guy, and one that could stand in opposition to what he believes. If his wrestling is any good, well, who am I to sit here and trash him if, the end result, the thing that we know him for, he's very good at? Well, there you go. And he is still very fucking good at pro wrestling. This is a very physical match. And we're doing brain busters and Spanish flies, and Austin Aries here playing the perfect heel, because he's cutting promos on how better he is than everyone, as before the match starts, and the heat is tremendous. And this is the type of environment in which Mistico 100% thrives in, where he can be the pure babyface, be the hero. He had everything set up for him. Austin Aries at some point, look, he does a really silly move, something really, really basic, but it was done so incredibly well. He avoids a moonsault by Mistico and arm drags him into the corner, like arm drags him right into the corner, doing a lucha style arm drag. And the way it was done, it was beautiful. It was beautifully executed, and it's something you really don't see all that much. And it was so well done. I was like, wow, okay, that actually ruled. And he's landing Death Valley drivers on the apron. Like he's going really full on physical on Mistico. And Mistico is taking all of this and he's having his hope spots, and they're getting squashed. Like it's such a basic traditional pro wrestling setup, but it's done so well by two guys who are tremendous at what they do. Like absolutely tremendous. And here's the kicker too. Despite the fact that Austin Aries goes around and tells everyone, I'm so much better than you, because I'm vegan, because my IQ is so high, which is another douchebag thing to talk about, quite frankly. It's like high IQ. Like that's another, the more you talk about it, the dumber you sound, right? And he's reminding people of how great he is on all these topics, and yet he still pulls out brass knuckles. They weren't brass knuckles, they were tape knuckles or whatever. But he did bring out an international object, basically, and put it on his fist to be able to knock out Mistico. So, I mean, that is just pristine heel work. That's just great fucking heel work, where he's wrestling a top-notch level game, right? He's generating tons of heat with the crowd, and still he knows he can't get the job done with Mistico because Mistico is better than him, or he wants to shortcut. Whatever it is, he's cheating. He's trying to cheat to get his way, and Mistico finally gets the upper hand and lands a senton atomico and a splash for the win. No la mística for Mistico to put Austin Aries away. Look, here's the thing. If you're like me and you've heard about this match and you're like, wow, this match sounds terrific, I got to go watch it. I'm going to tell you, this is straight up truth, okay? No bullshit here. This was a very, very, very good match. Do I consider it great? No. Is it excellent? No. No. But it's a well-worked, smartly put together, entertaining match. You're in, you're out. It's nothing that will blow your mind. It's nothing that we're going to talk about on end of the year lists. We're probably all going to forget about this match, in a few months, or unless Austin Aries' career has this tremendous resurgence, and we can point to this one being, part of the resurgence. No, this is a match that is destined to just go away, disappear from the public consciousness. But if you want to see a match, a super solid pro wrestling match from two guys who know exactly what they're doing, who understand their roles and who play them perfectly, and on top of that are really fucking good pro wrestlers, it's there for free on the fucking MLW channel on YouTube. It's like 13 minutes, something like that. It's not going to waste your time either. You're going to enjoy this match, right? Now, if you absolutely can't stand Austin Theory, then Aries there's a level of interchangeability as far as the dislike goes, but for different reasons too. Hey, we're not getting into that right now, Warren. Okay, Warren. But look, unless you really, really dislike Austin Aries and you don't want to see it, well, that's fine. We'll never talk about this again. That's fine. But it's a go out of your way to see match if you want to see a guy who is in his late 40s, right? He's pushing 50. A guy who hasn't wrestled in a long time, getting back in the saddle, and may not be the Austin Aries of his Ring of Honor days, but who is still very fucking good at what he does. Legitimately tremendous at what he does. If anything, it's an interesting little time capsule. And look, I recommend it on that level, but it's not like I said, this isn't going to be a match that's going to blow you away in any way, shape, or form. It's not going to be something where, it's not one of those that's just going to stick with you. It's not, but it's a really good match nonetheless. Bit of a dichotomy there. I can live with it. Can you? And on that note, we're going to wrap up this first edition of the wrestling review grab bag. I don't know exactly how to call it. We're keeping the grab bag thing. I think that's fun. I like grabbing bags. And I am also mostly super open to any recommendations that you, the viewing audience or listening audience, has. Whether these are excellent matches that happened recently, or bad ones that we can also dive into if you really want me to do it. I try to avoid WWE, but sometimes I can break my own rule if it's really worth it. That's not the issue. So please let me know. Let me know in the comments if there's anything you feel like I should take a look at, or jump into the Discord. The link is in the description, the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord, or find me on Blue Sky at mrwarrenhayes.show and converse, share, and I will, I think we've got something here. We'll see how far we go with it. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if you did, or reach out to me. Let me know if you enjoyed this. I think I enjoyed doing this. Not only do I think I enjoyed doing this, I know I enjoyed doing this. So hopefully you enjoyed it too, so we can do it again another time. Thank you all very much. Go watch the Ryan of the Order and get back to me, and I'll see you next time.